Alaskan Guide, Trapper, and Monster Hunter. Written by SledDogGuy. I've been a woodsman my whole life. Growing up in the state of Alaska, I've spent a great amount of time in the wilderness. Countless days tracking down massive bears, moose, and caribou. Weeks at a time mushing sled dogs across frozen rivers and being a guide on the most difficult hunts taught me survival skills that most of my colleagues will only dream of. Which is why I've made my living off the land on a remote homestead in the Mat-Su Valley south of Denali National Park. Being considered one of the best hunter trackers in a land full of them is what brought me to the attention of the FBI when they needed a very dangerous animal found and killed. It was a cold winter day when I first met Special Agent Jones. I was just done feeding my huskies their usual mix of hot water, salmon, and the best commercial dog food you can get. Trudging along towards my modest little log cabin to warm my cold body, I heard the whining of a snowmobile engine coming up the trail. It was unusual to hear a snowmobile on a Tuesday with the weekenders gone home for the time being. So, patiently waiting for it to continue west towards town, it suddenly turned north towards me. 10 minutes later, a smaller man, wearing a Fish and Game winter jacket on a newer trail model, pulled into my yard. The dogs, hearing a strange machine pulling up into the yard, began barking and howling with glee. The man was clearly quite cold as he quickly killed the two-stroke engine and walked up to me. He pulled off his glove and stuck out his hand. I quickly took his hand and greeted the man. "Special Agent Jones," he said. I looked at the man and saw instantly that he was out of his element. He had cold hands, a red nose, and the constant shivers that told me everything. So I said to this ill-prepared man, "Come inside, Agent Jones. It's mighty cold out here." Once inside, seated with a cup of coffee, I asked him, "What would an FBI agent want with a bush rat like myself?" The man straightened himself and said, "The FBI would like to employ your services as a tracker, sir." Well, I guess I was good at what I do, but I wasn't expecting this. "I see, and what exactly do you want me to track?" I asked. "Well, he stuttered. We're not exactly sure." "Not sure, huh?" I said, puzzled. He explained what happened. A couple of teenagers had been found on the Old Pearl River, one with their skull smashed open and the other with his chest crushed. "Were there any bite marks, scratches, anything on them?" I asked in bewilderment. "Not one," he said. "And where is the Old Pearl River at?" I asked. He looked at me goofy and said, "Louisiana." "I've never heard of it before," I told him. "And I don't think that I would do much good to you down there." "Oh, but you will," he assured. "We've been searching for the best woodsman in the country, and we found you," he said confidently. "I didn't fly all the way up here and freeze myself to death on a snowmobile just to go back down south and settle for second best," he quipped. "Well then, I guess you've got yourself a hunter," I answered. And that's how I found myself alongside the Old Pearl River, waist deep in swamp water, sitting next to a swamp man named Shelby. Shelby was an alligator hunter that had been hired for the use of his knowledge of the area and, more importantly, his airboat. "You boys get anything yet?" said Jake. Jake was a Marine Scout sniper until he was very recently recruited to be on this task force. "Sorry, Jake, nothing," I told the sniper. "Well, let's pull out for the night. I'm freezing out here and my feet are wet," Jones whined. "Fine," was all I said in return. Jones was clearly more of a desk jockey than a field guy. But this was his team and he was determined to be with us every step of the way. "Let's get going then," Shelby whispered. We quietly crept back to the airboat. "You're back," said Sarah. Sarah was a cryptozoologist, and Agent Jones said that she could be of some help to us. Yeah, we are back. Only been gone 6 hours, I retorted. Ignoring my sarcasm, she said, I've been doing some research and I think I know what we're dealing with. Doubling down on my sarcasm, I said, What, you don't believe what Jones told the public? You know, a bear that crushes people instead of chewing on them? She grinned and proudly stated, Nope, not even a little. Shelby fired up the boat and went and picked up Jones and Jake, and we all decided to regroup in the morning. A swamp ape, huh? Jake sneered. Sarah glared at him through her sunglasses, and I spoke. Well, it sure wasn't a bear, Jake. You saw the bodies. Yeah, that wasn't no black bear, was the short, athletic man's only reply. How do we kill it? Shelby asked. We don't, answered Sarah while staring at me. We trap it, she stated. Right then, Jones got a call and went outside. How are we going to trap an 800-pound, pissed-off swamp monster? Jake intelligently asked. To trap an animal, you've got to know what the animal eats, how it walks, how intelligent it is, the way it thinks, among other things, I informed him. Shelby then stated the obvious. So we're back to square one then. We gotta find the thing. Just then, Jones came back to the table. We gotta go right now, he ordered. I'll explain on the way. After loading up into the car and heading out, we drove for a while and then we reached our destination. As we pulled up to the scene, Jake cursed. There were 8 pigs dead, 5 smashed skulls, and 3 ripped throats. We got out of Shelby's old Ford truck and quickly investigated the scene. They were all killed maybe 3 hours ago. There were large, 3-toed tracks with webbed feet that were heading back towards the swamp. I told Jones that I should start tracking now and the others should go and get Shelby's boat. I can't send someone alone out there. I'll go with you, he said. No, you can't. Someone has to stay here and deal with the farmer and the press when they hear about this, I explained. Jake, what about you? I left my M40 in my room, Jake confessed. What about me? Sarah asked. You ain't got no gun though, said Shelby. I'll borrow your pistol then, Sarah replied. That's fine with me, I guess. I approved. Jones simply nodded and Shelby handed her his old 1911 pistol. I already had my Colt 45 on my hip, so I pulled my Marlin 4570 out of Shelby's truck and off into the swamp we went. For 7 hours we tracked the beast through the swamp. It was clearly quite intelligent as it made almost no tracks as it moved through the forest. This made my task very difficult. Finally, as we crept through the swamp, we heard a noise just up ahead. I quickly motioned for Sarah to stay still. Then I saw the monster. It stood approximately 8 feet tall and was roughly 400 pounds. The monster's arms had to be at least 5 feet long, and the thing was covered in a reddish-brown fur. Almost the instant that I saw the creature, I smelled it. It had the horrible stench of spoiled milk and wet dog. The thing that seemed the strangest to me, though, was its eyes. They were red and menacing, and there was a slight glow to them. I put my lever gun up against my shoulder and I took aim. Sarah squeezed my arm slightly. Please don't, she asked. I locked eyes with her and lowered my weapon with a slight sigh. The monster let out a deep, loud howl and continued on into the swamp. After this, we went back to the motel. That night, as I lay in my bed, I thought about why I didn't shoot the monster. I mean, I had a clear shot. Even if I told Jones that I didn't, and with a 4570, I could have dropped it before it knew what had hit it. I arrived at the conclusion that I didn't take the shot because Sarah had asked me not to. Sarah was that kind of person. This entire time, she had been trying to capture it, not kill it. Needless to say, after that night, I was much more interested in my newfound profession and my new partner. The next morning, we all met to decide how to go about capturing the beast. After a few minutes, we had something that resembled a plan. "I think it's perfect," said Jones. "Yeah," agreed Jake. "So he walks in, hits the tripwire, the gate falls, and he can't get out," Sarah confirmed. "Yeah," was my reply. Earlier that morning, I had designed a cage trap for our prey. "Okay, Shelby, take Jake into the swamp and find a good spot for this thing," Jones stated. He gestured to me and said, "You and I will go into town and get someone to start building this contraption." "What about me?" asked Sarah. "Find out as much as you can about our little friend, and then we'll meet up after Jones and I are done in town," I said. Jones simply nodded in agreement. After we had finished in town, we met back with Sarah. I couldn't find out much on our buddy, but from what I did find out, it seems that he's some sort of swamp Bigfoot, but meaner, and he's got some serious BO, Sarah said, and then she sat down next to me. She had decided to get a nicer hotel suite, so she wanted to meet there. In my experience, meaner is really just more territorial. I softly corrected her. "Either way, at least I'll have you there," she said with a smirk. "Oh, I'll protect you," I said with a laugh. "I don't need your protection. I just know that I can run faster than you," she confessed with a laugh. I grinned and looked at the clock. "I better get going," I told her. "I'll show you the door," she offered. After stepping to the other side of the doorway, I turned to say goodnight. She softly grabbed my hand and said, "Thank you for the other night, for, not shooting it." "It's not a problem, you're welcome," I replied. "Good night," she said. And I said goodnight, Sarah. I turned to leave, and she said, "Do you really think it's going to work?" "It will," was all I said in return. The plan was simple. We had figured out that he's like a bear and that he likes his food rotten. It had been seen digging up those pig carcasses and carrying one of them back into the swamp. So we dug up the rest and we were using them as bait. After about 5 hours of waiting, the beast finally showed itself slowly sulking out of the swamp, about 25 yards directly in front of Sarah and I. "Eyes on," I whispered into the radio to Jake and Jones on the opposite side of the trap. The beast rose up and sniffed the air, looking for danger. A slight snap came from my right side. I looked to see that Sarah had tripped, and she was now scared. Turning my eyes back to the beast, I found those big red eyes were locked on me. As soon as we locked eyes, the thing charged. An idea ran through my head, and I prayed that it would work. I motioned for Sarah to stay down, and I started running towards the trap. It was roughly 25 feet away. I heard the monster chasing after me. It was gaining speed fast. I got directly in front of the trap door. I whirled around to see if it had caught up, and it leapt towards me. But I dodged him. He spun around to face me, and with his back now to the door, his face was met with the butt of my rifle. He fell backwards into the trap, triggering it. The iron gate dropped, locking him inside. The beast let out a roar. It was a very angry roar that sent shivers down my back. Jake swore as he ran up to my side, and we both looked at our handiwork. Later, the FBI was finishing loading the beast into a truck when Jones approached me. "What do you think of the team?" he asked. My gaze shifted towards Sarah as she was talking to some agent about the beast. "I liked it," I answered. Jones, catching my gaze, said with a smirk, "Some more than the others." A grin was my only reply. "Would you be interested in doing hunts like this in the future? Everyone else has already agreed," he asked in a more serious tone. I thought for a moment and then said, "Yeah, I'll hunt with you folks anytime."